What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the place where you can find the latest NFT trends and the best NFT content for entrepreneurs. This is Above The Jpeg with your favorite new friend, Kango Lan. We are chatting with Tim Porter, the CTO of ModTag Lab, a tool that can scan real-world items and turn them into 3D digital assets. We talked about how he is currently leveraging NFTs in the AR VR space, as well as his view on public chain and private chain. Tune in and find out. Hey, Tim, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. How's everything going today?
Everything's going good, man. Are you tuning in from Austin?
I am. I'm here in Austin, Texas. I'm in my, as everybody has, an at-home, business setup. I don't know. I mean, we had an office before the whole COVID thing made everything gross, right? And
so you're not in Capital Factory?
No. We're a Capital Factory portfolio company. And sometimes we go to Capital Factory. Sometimes you'll see us at our other investors. So we're invested by Sputnik ATX, and so we go to their place. The views, I can tell you, from Sputnik are absolutely phenomenal. So they're at the 22nd floor over at 301 Congress. So you overlook the river. Oh yeah, it wraps all the way around. So it does the river. The other side's not nearly as nice, but if you're like, don't look down too far, because if you know that area of town, it's like okay. But if you look out, it's absolutely beautiful because the building is giant, and we have the entire top floor, and we can basically hang out wherever we want. That's kind of the benefits of having really cool investors. So
oh my goodness, that's cooler than Capital Factory. Not gonna lie. So Tim, I would love to hear an introduction from you on what you're working on, man. I know I personally know ModTag Lab, and it's been something that I think is super cool for not just me, but also a lot of entrepreneurs who are looking into Web3 metaverse to learn about.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so ModTag Labs takes photos and videos and converts them to 3D assets. Most of our clients are in the movie, video game space, but we've seen a massive surgence in Web3, Web 2.5, depending on which way you do the connotations, depending on the corporation that we talk to. Web3 has, metaverse plays involving money with crypto, while some companies are like not ready for that. And so it just kind of depends on your commentary if you're like, is it metaverse, is it Web3? But basically the whole idea is being able to see things in 3D. If we're talking about, metaverse Web3 side of things, there's a lower return rate. You're talking about like 35% lower returns. You also have like a 50% higher purchase. Everybody who is millennial and younger have like a 80% recommendation to see all of their stuff in AR. So everybody who is like anything younger than like 45 years old wants to be able to see their assets in on them, around them, things like that. Being able to see something in 3D is, kind of gives you that ability to purchase beforehand, right? Like
that's so true, because the other day I was actually talking to one of my professor. He's one of my law professor here at University of San Francisco. Great professor, very wealthy man. He knows a lot about business. But, when I mentioned this idea of I want to be able to like know that I own this particular house. That's why I like tokenizing real estate, right? That's why because I want to be able to see it. But he just doesn't get it. He was like, why don't you just put in an investment fund? I was like, wow, that feels different. There's less transparency there. But this is interesting. So you guys did the research. You figured out it was 45 years old.
Oh yeah, everybody 45 and younger, and that's the big thing. So I mean, for your exact commentary though, like we get, and we're actually starting projects with companies that sell weaponry. So you're talking about like antique guns and like swords and like it definitely goes into that NFT collectible space, but it's kind of bragging rights. Like, let's be honest, you could sit there and you can show your buddy, you're like, dude, check this out. You pull out your phone and they can spin around it. You're like, look at the sights on that. That's a $3,000 sight on top, dude. Like, and that's a big thing. And some of these weapons, if you're talking about some of the automatic weapons that we're talking about, they start at 10K and they go up mid six figures in a heartbeat. And so if you're going to spend, like you said, on something that is collectible for you, you're talking about in your investment property where it's a house, being able to go ahead and go, I have this one, this is what it looks like. Hey, everybody, check this out. Look, do you want to do a tour? Like being able to share that and have that digital slip between real world and the digital world is something that we're extremely comfortable with. Like my kids who are 5 and 7 immediately pick up everything 3D scanner, visual, things like that. I remember the first time that I understood how limited our world was when my youngest daughter got so upset at my laptop because she's used to an iPad. She was smashing on the screen. She's like, because I don't have a touch screen on my on my screen. Like that's just not a thing that is really good on the laptop. So it sucks. And she was just like, I don't get it. Why would you use this when you could just touch the screen? And it's this whole digital native kind of commentary is being able to do that. But yeah, you're 100% like 45 and below. Everybody's just like, oh yeah, of course.
Interesting. Interesting. Right? Yeah. And people don't even think about it, right? Yeah. So I know that Matap Lab, invest very heavily on, really deep technologies on, how to turn real world objects into digital assets, right? AR, VR use case. So that really ties into, I know you guys work a lot with the Web3 side of things as well. There's blockchain involved. If I got it right, there's NFT involved too, right?
We do have NFTs involved in ours. We do NFTs in a couple of different ways on our mobile app. We have a consumer style one that's there where you can mint any of the assets that you've scanned on the mobile app. We don't have that integration finalized in the web version because we have two different capturing, playback, processing application kind of thing, because everything's done on our servers. You can do it on Android and iOS, and then you have our web version, but on Android and iOS, that's fully integrated at this point. So you go ahead and you get your download, you get a push notifications like, hey, ding, Toast is done. And then you go ahead and you take a look at it and you're like, yeah, I like this. I want to go ahead and mint it. All you have to do is put in your ETH address, and as long as it can accept Palm, because that's what we're doing is Palm.io, then that works. But our big play on an enterprise side, and so this goes to utilities, guys, because this is important. NFTs, if anybody hasn't watched, the first tweet went from, 2.3 million people are now giving offers at $300. So like we need a utility to continue NFTs past the collectible idea. Where we're working with studios is we go to major studios and they have a backlog of props that they want to utilize. So think of like, Brendan Fraser's hat from The Mummy, like big thing, be like, cool, I can have the skull from Crystal Skulls. Yeah, that's awesome. And then what do you do with it? I mean, typically when you want to go ahead and put it into a video game, there is this massive licensing kind of issue that happens. It costs somewhere in the neighborhood of like $600,000 just for like the lawyer conversations back and forth. So if I'm $600,000, so 600K, to go ahead and get all the licensing deals all wrapped up, just contract wise, people time, stuff like that. So that is like a pretty average figure if you're a major corporation, if you want to go ahead and get that.
You guys have worked in the entertainment industry before, right?
Oh yeah. My background is in video games and movies. Yeah, that was what I did for a long time. But if you want to go ahead and do, and I'll cover that obviously after I get done with this very long soliloquy of the interesting utilitarian side. If you want to go ahead and license as a studio, what we do is we're setting up these marketplaces. So you would go to, say, Warner Brothers website, and you're like, cool, I want this, I want it for my game. And then it's like, cool, we act as an intermediary, as mod. And then we take those assets and then people can download from us. And then every single download gives whatever % of royalties or something like that. And so we're working with that and like metaverse companies to be able to go ahead and do licensing. But yeah, my background is in video games and movies. In video games, I was a technical artist. In movies, I was a pipeline technical director. Last movie I worked on was Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass. My big thing in video games, although my hard skills surround coding, automation, tools creation, things like that, which totally makes sense why we have a massively automated platform to take photos and videos to 3D. Duh, that makes sense. Like that's what we do. That's my blood. Is my softer skills are around things like negotiation and product management and things like that. So I would be like the person who would speak for the product itself. So I would sit down, like say, our design team would go, hey, let's have a meeting. And you're like, okay, we want for the shot, we want 100-headed Hydra. And I'd be like, I'd look over the art team and they're drawing kittens and everything but hydras, and the dev team's already thrown a table at me because they know I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make this happen. And then we'd go away and I'd come back, I'd sit down with the design team and get all the specifications that they needed. And I'd go back to art team and I'd start making these tools. Be like, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and make an auto head maker, and you put in like the 10 pieces, and then it'll do that. And then I would go over to the dev team and I'd be like, okay, cool. What I'm going to do is make sure that all those heads and everything's all in the right space. And that's going to be great, because then all you have to do is do the code and like put it in. It's going to automatically work. And then I'd start doing some like low profile tests and things like that, and look at the game itself as far as optimization goes. And then I'd be like, oh shoot, we can only do 85 heads. So I'd go back and we'd negotiate and be like, hey, design, is 85 okay? Can we do that? If not, we'd come up with something else. And so that's like my whole world is making sure, and I'll bring down the camera because obviously I'm laying back. Everybody doesn't want to see my nose here. That's kind of obviously important, and that's the way we run as a company. Just in general, is we want to be able to make it to where everyone eventually can do it. Obviously, we're working on it like a studio level at this point in time, but I think it's in what we consider, it's like this Prometheus effect. We have to take this stuff that previously it was like only super big studios could do it. Okay, let's now make it a repeatable pattern. Okay, let's go ahead and take that and let's start moving it towards consumer. And that's going to take some time. I see that being in like 2 years, you guys will be able to make the Mandalorian in the backyard, but I don't see why not. I mean, ML is moving faster. Like 2 years ago, the stuff that ML was capable of versus now is just like worlds away. So much fun.
So it's a world of difference. I mean, right now I use, well, I guess ML to write my essays, right? Like ML training AI to write my essay now. It's came a long way, man. Like,
oh yeah.
I hope my professor doesn't listen to this, but if he listens to this, I don't write my essay. I have to admit that. I use AI to write my essay now, of course. So so Tim, I'm very interested to ask, what do you think that 3D scanned assets and NFTs is going to play in the Web3 and or the metaverse? Because I think this is a wild west, right? There's a lot of opportunities that a lot of entrepreneurs should be aware of and take advantage of. So what do you think 3D scanned asset NFTs is going to aid Web3 and help these entrepreneurs?
Sure. I think one thing that we need to discuss before we talk about what that aid is the concept of NFT in and of itself, and the way that people tend to think of NFTs. And I think it's important for us to demystify
100%.
that an NFT isn't just like
it's above
the JPEG. Exactly. I just want to make sure that everybody who is listening to us talk, and I know you and I have this as a common conversation and thought process that we've done previously. I just want everyone who is listening to us right now to realize that an NFT is basically like a locked piece to a larger play. It basically makes you have the ability to go ahead and, with smart wallets or smart systems, be able to pull back to that. And it helps with things like ownership. It helps with tracking. It helps with so many other things. But to think that a Bored Ape is the end of capabilities as it comes to NFTs, that means that you just need to spend a little more time educating yourself on what's happening actually in the real world. So in the place that you're talking about, obviously, it goes in towards that larger ownership and that larger thing. What we're working on right now is because we have 30,000 users on our mobile app, we have corporations that are talking to us that need assets. Cool. Why don't we put those two together? We have something like maybe Roblox that comes to us and is like, hey, we need, and we'll go back to Brenton Fraser's hat. We want a hat that looks like, maybe it's a Teddy Rumpkins or something cool like from the 80s. First person that has that in, perfect. We'll give you $50 and 5% royalties for the end of the time. And I send out a push notification, it goes to 30K people, and then suddenly it's like Uber for 3D scanning. So being able to do that, the only way that you can keep that tracking is through an NFT. I mean, I could do that on my systems and things like that. But then you also want those secondary numbers. And this is what major corporations are super excited about. As long as this asset is attached to an NFT and that object itself is attached in a way that it actually secures the individual from being able to download and leak this intellectual property, but it can still be shown on a bunch of third-party systems that allow for this in a secure manner, then cool. I get to visualize it as an end user. I can look at it on my phone. I still own this object. I can't download it so I can resell it to other people because I don't own the IP around it. I own the usage of it. That's like taking a photo of a famous person. I own the photo, but I don't own the rights to the famous person or their likeness and blah, 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 blah. That same exact concept is going to have to play here. It obviously is going to take a lot more security, but being able to do this from beginning to end where everybody can make a buck. We can crowdsource like everything out there. I mean, so to give you an idea, and this is just for virtual production. If anybody knows what virtual production is, it's like Mandalorian, using LED walls and like way less green screen, and like everything is digital, and like very little few things are actually physical that are in there. You have to think about, like some other new famous movie, they pick up something and there's like a digital version and then the physical version, like there's all of the scanning that goes involved in it. And things like that. Going the difference between a typical VFX movie, so tons and tons and tons of CG asset, to a virtual production movie is almost 3 times the amount of assets that you need. Now think about that for video games. Okay, if you want to recreate the world, I'm looking around me and I'm sure I have a semi-cluttered room because I like having all my stuff immediately available. Like, who doesn't need to have a Tesla card while you're talking? Why not? But like,
you just got that handy, huh?
I'm doing a refresh. These are old K40Ms, so they have like 11 gigs of RAM, and they're great for what we have. We have 4 GPU systems and things like that, but we're working with NVIDIA and get some new big boy toys. But yeah, that's why that one's hanging out there. But nevertheless, like going between that and thinking about having to scan the world, I can literally count in front of me probably 600 unique objects. That's just in a room. Think about the outside. Think about, scanning the world and things like that. There's no way humanly possible that we could generate enough to generate realism without more people than our industry focused.
That's right.
Involved.
There's just too much work for humans to be able to do this. I think it needs to be automated, and we need to take advantage of this computing power to make it available. So actually, as we were talking about, I was just thinking about one of the company that I'm talking to that we're serving is building this educational metaverse, right? And what they have is, this is interesting. So what they have is they have like human cadaver labs, right? They have a lot of chemical stuff. It's interesting how they're still using this animated form of human cadaver lab, right? It'll be so interesting if we can scan the real thing and make it more realistic, because when you operate on a human body, it's very different from the animated human body.
Oh yeah.
Because the other day I was looking at, I had this company, it grossed me out. The demo that they had was literally doing surgery on a person, exchanging the joint. It grossed me out. But when I went in there, I was like, wait, this looks so different from what the animated human body looks like, right? Because I think for a medical student to go into a human cadaver lab, it'll be so cool if we can give them that realism in their human cadaver lab, right? And that's just
100%.
talking about a company that I know, close friends with. I feel like they will really benefit from some sort of technology like this.
I agree. There are some movements that have been around that. Actually, something that was really interesting coming out about 4 years ago. There's a company here in Austin. Their entire company is surrounding scanning brains for surgery. There's this crazy thing that happens. It's called brain
Getting
shift.
brains in term of like
So if you get
for a wave.
a brain, yeah, if somebody's getting brain surgery. So they do MRIs and CAT scans, and they need to line up things after the fact, because when you pull off someone's skull, the brain actually swells and then shrinks. And there's this thing that's called brain shift. And so the way that they would have had to have done it before is they would take somebody to either a CAT scan or a portable MRI machine and things like that. And so their system actually goes ahead and scans the brain continuously as they're doing it. And so you have to think, if I need to go ahead and go to part of the brain and I need to like go at this exact angle, and if I'm off by a millimeter that way or that way, then somebody now talks only from one side of their mouth. That's like a thing. But if you can go ahead and do that throughout surgery, that's what they're doing. That's their whole thing. And we've also bid on a number of contracts, and they haven't gone through for a couple of reasons. It's always been money, not on our side, on their side. They haven't been able to secure the funds for exactly what you're talking about, surgery. We have been brought in to consult on a number of volumetric video
Man,
scanning surgery capture rigs and setting up all the parts and pieces around it. Like I said, they've never really made because of money. Well, and let's be honest, COVID really kind of shut down a lot of concepts. And anybody who got any level of funding, and you're talking about, this is really going to be like an institutional thing, like a college or for medical center training. Like all their money went towards COVID stuff, not like, here, let's take a look at these surgery things. But we've also been involved in scanning people's lungs for post-COVID check. So being able to see how much breathing that people have based off of that. And that was like a whole kind of thing. Once again, that was another one of those things where once the funding was allocated towards them, it kind of went, because COVID was like that. Like everybody was like, what do I do with the money that's come? And like, earmarks were never really solid during COVID. But yeah, that's you're 100% correct. That is something that's obviously important for any given industry, is to be able to see the real world as it
that's
exists in
right.
digital space.
That's right. And I think, oh dude, I gotta tell my friends about it. I gotta tell them
Yeah,
about it.
sure.
He actually got funded by Meta, a super cool company. Okay,
Oh,
so next thing, man. Quickly wanted to, so where I see the Web3 and how these
yeah.
technologies going is that there's a lot of infrastructures that's being built. I see Martech
Mhm.
as one of these infrastructure that's going to be crucial at the user experience
Mhm.
of the next generation of the internet. So
Thank you.
what type of project, who would be utilizing a leverage of 3D asset NFT?
So, we see people doing 3D assets for NFT even at this point in time, with our combination going between, major studios and game studios. We're also seeing where inter-company studios, think about like an Epic or something like that, where they actually own a number of properties, or at least they're on a number of properties. Those type of companies, obviously, I would think would be interested in that side of worlds. We've definitely been in discussions with ones that are kind of like that as far as conversation goes. And then also you have to think of major corporations that are also interested in worlds like tagging. This is actually something that kind of came out of left field, and I'm actually extremely interested in, is in the world of I don't know if you've seen the IKEA app. There's an AR IKEA app. You can kind of see like your
Oh,
furniture and
dude, that'd be
things like that.
so cool.
And so the thing that we have seen come up, and this just like came out of left field, and I was very surprised, is a major corporation that does home electronics came to us, and they go, well, what we want to be able to do is, think somebody gets like a TV or a stove or something like that. What we want to do is we want to start doing either direct shipping or shipping to their nearest like Best Buy or something like that, but it's that TV. And so when you go and do an order nowadays, especially because backfill is so hard and being able to get all the content that you need is so hard, what their interest is you be able to see the asset, it's been scanned, they can look at it in the air, they're like, yeah, that's cool, I like that. Then they put their credit card in, and then they get an NFT of the asset. And then when they go to do it for purchase, then they just show their cell phone and go, this is the one that I want. And they can track this basically from birth to grave, because that first initial contract that I have with them, then the subs on that end up having an NFT rebuild on each one of them. So you can use that as a tracking system. And then at the very end, the end user goes, yes, perfect. And then they can look at the life cycle of the asset as it came from factory to home.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love how you tied it to the physical items as well. You know, the physical use cases and the physical entrepreneurship.
I don't live in the metaverse yet. Soon enough, man. But right now, we got to make the shit happen that's around us. Let's be honest.
I agree. I agree. Okay, last thing before we go.
Sure.
This is quite a controversial topic, I guess.
Sure.
But we talked about this, so
Yeah,
I
we
want to
did.
bring it up. Private chain versus public chain, right?
Sure.
Just sort of, well, yeah. I think I gotta be fair here. I am a pro public chain position.
Sure.
But I'm open-minded, right? I want to just kind of hear. First of all, you know, as an entrepreneur, I understand, like, hey,
Yeah,
whatever the client needs, right? So
you got it.
what's your personal opinion on public chain versus private chain, and what are the
Sure.
difficulties of having everyone to be on the public chain?
Sure. The opportunistic individual in me, the entrepreneur, obviously sees private chain as a more attractive solution. Having a private chain means more control. The more control you have as a corporation or as an individual, the more you can manage how data, money, and assets flow. The wanting the free internet to kind of show back up again does like public chain. I just don't think we need to say one or the other. I think it can be both. We can live in a public chain world, and there's no reason why public chain assets can't pay for private chain objects. And that's exactly what my company is doing with Palm. Palm is a private chain, it's not a public chain. And yet you can go ahead and turn around, and with what is it, ECR 721 or whatever the new one that comes out, I always forget what the numbers are. Yeah, I know somebody in the background. What was that?
1155 now.
Yeah, 1150. I don't know, man. Like every time I turn around, there's like a new number. I'm like, hey, do you guys know you could just like change the name? You don't have to be like, I don't know if you know, like you know, USB 3.1 has a specific IEEE number that's attached to it. You don't need a specific, you know, IEEE number attached to each one of these different. It doesn't make any stupid, like it's stupid. Why can't you just call it the Jimmy chain? Like, I don't know. Just call it something.
Yeah, call it something, right? Something other than numbers.
Right? Exactly. And so you can go from the private chain, and you can keep this private so long as other companies are interested in this private. So say, you know, you're like Roblox and you want to do something with Epic, and you guys both accept Palm, perfect, that's cool. Or you could end up playing the game where you jump it over to ETH, since it has an ECR that's attached to it. You can pop it to ETH, and then you can jump it to another private chain based off of that. The big thing that obviously we all still want to have, if somebody can pop it from private to public, is that the intellectual property that was on the private chain still can be maintained and by the company. Once again, you're not buying license to utilize the scan inside of it. Those are very different deals and very different contracts. And people, especially with intellectual property rights, have a very difficult time understanding the difference to it. I don't know how many times I spend time on LinkedIn where I watch people post and they're like, oh, it's open source code. And I'm like, yes, open source code is a big conversation.
That's right, but there's so many different type of open source.
Oh yeah, no, I see people that do non-commercial, copyleft, share alike, and I'm like, you do realize what you just built on top of that I can have right now. I can take that from you. You have to give that to me according to that license code, and you don't own any of it. And they're just like, wait, what? And I'm like, you need a lawyer on your team. But it's that same thing when it comes to intellectual property rights. People aren't educated on that. And so it's hard. And I don't want to be a dick about it, but you have to put in contingencies to protect your intellectual property rights. And I think that's important for everyone.
So in this case, you know how NFTs actually have different intellectual properties as well, right? Different
Correct.
license, different type, kind of like how traditional products are. So
Yeah.
what would you say would be a good type of, oh, sorry, my alarm. It's a Minium wake up alarm.
I
Anyway,
thought it was a cat. I was like, did you step on a cat? Like,
no. It's my alarm. It's a Minium. It's like,
oh,
wake up. That's my wake up
that makes
alarm.
sense. That's
But
funny.
you know, there's so many different type of products out there.
Yeah.
And I know you work a lot with the intellectual properties, right? You know a lot about it because you're in the entertainment industry. By the way, I know we're gonna wrap it up pretty soon. I know you gotta go pretty soon, so I'm gonna make it quick. You work with a lot of intellectual stuff, so I think that there might be like a certain type of intellectual agreement that would be better on private chain versus
Correct.
just straight up on public chain, right? So that's from my understanding, like, okay, maybe I should think it through better, but I think of things as like, hey, you know what, if I make something, I don't want to own it, I just want to buy it or just give it away or something.
Sure.
But I guess it's not how the world functions, right? So
no, it's not how intellectual property rights function either. Yeah, exactly.
that's right. So for individuals, I guess that's fine, but for companies, they do want to keep that rights to their intellectual property. So is that the type of intellectual property that will fit better with a private chain, jump to public chain, jump back to private chain?
Yeah, I think anything that has intellectual property rights that far surpass the ownership of that. I know when you get a Bored Ape, you actually own that, you own the image, you own the art. That's cool. That's great for public chain. You might still want that private chain because then you're worried about somebody taking it from you. The big problem that we have in the concept of public versus private chain really does come down to security around the way that we do NFTs. If anybody hasn't spent a lot of time, NFTs just in general, I'm working with companies with IPFS setups and things like that. If anybody hasn't dealt in that world, I mean, you can with 3 hops, I could get anybody's information on a regular basis. Way we've done it has actually been smarter. The NFT points back to a URL, and that URL is left open. You end up having to put in your username and password to be able to download the asset. And so if you want to be able to see the asset, that's cool. And if you go ahead and you put in that information into a wallet, it will download it and be able to see it. You can do cool things like that. But even then, that's really clunky and it's really disgusting. If you can, or somebody comes up with a solution to be able to protect intellectual property rights inherently within the chain itself, I'll agree entirely on public chain. I have absolutely no problem with that.
Now that's a good problem to left for the communities, guys. Whoever's out there, whoever's listening, who are interested in solving this problem. Oh, this would be a great problem to solve, man. That's right. If we can put that mechanism into this token inherently into its code, it would work, huh? Oh, dude, this is so genius. Hey, that's a great note to end on, Tim. Thank you so much for sharing all the knowledge, and thank you so much for your time and being on the show, man. I really appreciate you.
Awesome, man. Hey, yeah, thanks. If anybody out there comes up with a really good answer to that, please hit me up. My email address is tim@modtechlabs.com. You'll find me everywhere on social media under Tim Cool Mode. My company name is ModTech Labs. So you can, once again, if anybody knows how those URL things work, if you just go to modtechlabs.com, you don't have to do the Tim @ you can go to our website. And then we also have 30-day free trial for both our web version and our mobile version is entirely free. Go on to any store, have fun, scan whatever you want, make free NFTs. For right now, for the next couple of months, we will give you guys a free NFT that will go right in your wallet. And enjoy and have fun, everyone.